What's up, guys? Today I'm going to share with you a new project that I have going on. This car is a 1988 CRX Si. The car is solid, but it's a little rough around the edges. I bought it because we're going to turn this into another track car. And let me give you a little story behind that. My parents and I haven't lived in the same town in quite a long time, but now they're moving back to the area. And so my dad and I decided to put something together that was already pretty inexpensive, but had some reasonable mods on it. That way we could have a decent platform to start with. And so we can let this maybe be a guide of what you can expect for the price. I know prices are going to vary depending on state or even country, but let me give you a rundown of this car. This could be a great guide for someone looking to build a track car or just a fun car. This car, I think, is beyond daily driver status, but I know some of you guys would potentially run it like that. Now first, let's go over price. We paid $1,800 for this car. We purchased it up in Phoenix, Arizona. That's where my parents live. I sent my dad over. He test drove it. He kind of looked at everything and sent me a ton of pictures, and then of course called me and we talked about it. And then he drove the car about 60 miles home, so we know it has no issues driving it. And unfortunately, on the way home, you guys may have noticed already, it has a JDM front end, JDM front bumper, hood, and the hood that is damaged. Now, unfortunately, this hood was damaged on the drive home. My dad checked it. We checked it a handful of times. He tried pulling the hood up as hard as he could with his hands, and it did not come loose. But on his drive home, only doing about 40 miles an hour, he said, the hood unfortunately popped up, cracked the windshield, and damaged the OEM hood. And so that was very unfortunate that this original, well, I'm sorry, I said OEM, but it is OEM, but OEM JDM hood. Fortunately, it was damaged beyond repair. This paint that chipped off was because it was actually bent in, and I guess when it hit up, it knocked some of the paint, and looks like where the filler was when they originally painted this car. So we lost the hood, which hurt the value of the car, but I still think it's worth it. What we plan on doing now is, I believe we're just going to leave the JDM front end on as we use it for our fun and track car. I don't want to get a different bumper and have it different colored. I kind of like how the car's entirely maroon. I can live with the battle damage. That doesn't necessarily bother me too much. I think we're going to pull it off, and here in the corners where it's bent the most, try to flatten it out so it sits a little better. And then even on the bottom of it, we may try to remove the webbing so it's even more lightweight. And then put some aero catch hood locks and pins on here. That way we have a way to secure it. But you know how they say Y49s are cursed. It's a little scary that this happened because this is a repainted Y49, and that seems to be one of the issues. When you repaint a Y49, you end up having unknown things happen and damage happening to the cars unexpectedly. But let's move on. Let me give you a tour of the car. Plus I want to take a look at it myself. I haven't had a chance to really inspect it. I've only seen certain things and I know of certain mods. And I still feel like all the mods that are on the car definitely make up for the price that we paid. Now let's start with one of the most important parts of it, the power plant. Let me get the hood open real quick. It has a JDM B16, still OBD0, has some Hasport motor mounts, DC 4-to-1 header. Unfortunately, the traction bar has to be one other traction bar. The cross member has to be cut to fit this. We may throw on a traction bar depending on whether or not we keep the header. Mishimoto radiator hoses. It has an upgraded master cylinder. I don't know if this is a DA or a 9091 Civic Sedan EX. I can't tell just by looking at it. I'll figure it out along the way. And the previous owner actually did not have a radiator at the time, so when he was selling it, he put a brand new radiator on it and a brand new battery. So those are just pluses in terms of the pricing. I don't want to see what ECU we're running. I imagine the PR3 or the PW0. Let's check. This one is a PW0, so the OBD0 B16 ECU. And it still has a catalytic converter on it. And the exhaust is a Skunk2 full catback, which I'm really excited about. I love the way these exhausts sound. And so that's what propels the car. Now let's get a real quick clip of the interior. There's not much there, and there's not much upgraded. But check out these seats that it came with. These are absolutely fantastic, and they are in very, very good shape. Up here in the corner, there's a small little tear, but it's very minimal. I was talking to Chris. He's my friend that owns that silver CRX Si and also that JDM front red one that he has not painted yet. And he knows a lot about CRXs. Like, I didn't really know what these seats were from. He says it's from a lower model in Europe that had the matching cloth rear seats, but I think they're excellent, and these are going to look fantastic in my yellow Y49. I'm going to transplant them over to there, and then we're going to put a bucket seat in here, and I don't know, maybe we'll use my old passenger seat for the opposite side. And here's a quick look at the passenger side, which is even better shape than the driver's side. I love this fabric in the middle, the texture and the design. It looks really, really cool. And the only other mod in the cabin is it has a password JDM shift boot and a password JDM shift knob. The rest of the interior is pretty rough. The dash isn't really that nice. It has some cracks here and there. It's solid and complete, so we'll leave it alone. One thing I did notice was, if you can see back in there, it has been gutted of all of the heater and AC components. So it is a bare dash behind there, and that's probably one of the reasons I don't recommend a car like this being a daily driver, especially if you live someplace that's really, really cold. Now, where I live, it never really gets that cold in the winter, so you could probably deal with it. But I just think that the heater is a nice creature comfort. I almost would have preferred it was in here, because if you ever have overheating issues at the track, it's a nice way to help alleviate some of that heat from your engine very quickly, just to avoid blowing a head gasket or having any other kind of failures. And of course the carpet's missing. It doesn't have the cargo cover or the panels in the back. And the panels are a little rough themselves. Like, that one has some cracks on the very back. Like up in this area, I was looking at it. Missing the speaker covers. Doesn't have the panel for the very rear of the car. And then this one's okay. But all of this is getting yanked. We're gonna gut this car completely. Sunroof does not work, and the headliner's a little rough also. So hopefully down the line we can pull it and maybe devise some sort of panel up here, especially since it's going to be a little bit on more of the budget side. We're not trying to spend a ton of money on this car. We just want it to be fun, and something that we can go cruise around in if we ever just want to drive it around. It's still going to be completely street legal. And the door panels are both very rough too. This one is actually the good door panel. The other one is completely missing all of the vinyl material on the top of it. We will probably leave those on the car though. I think it just creates a little bit nicer creature comforts when getting in and out of the car, for the windows and the door handle for the actual pull and the door handle itself. And so that wraps it up for the interior portion. And for the rear exterior, it has I guess it's a password JDM wiper delete. I'd never seen that before, but I'm not gonna mess with it. I'll leave it alone. It has a 9091 rear bumper, password JDM tow hook, 8889 tail lights. It is pushed in a little bit. You can see right here how it's overlapping onto the body, and then plus that we actually removed the screw, because when we were towing it, the tires are so fat that it was starting to rub the bumper a little bit, so we wanted to avoid it, maybe potentially ripping the bumper off or just creating an issue when we're towing it down here. So I'll check underneath. I looked underneath the car already and on the inside of the trunk area, and there's no damage like where it was crashed into, but the bumper obviously probably was dinged and pushed in, and so I might be able to straighten it out. If not, it's not the end of the world. It's just a rear bumper. Let's move on to the suspension now. I haven't had the chance to remove the wheels. I want to see what it's sitting on. He said it has a Skunk2 camber kit. We're going to find out. These are Rota group ends, 15 by 6.5, and I believe a plus 40 offset. Tires are terrible in the front. Really nice shape in the rear, but very large in the rear. I noticed it has raised lug nuts, which is really cool. I'm going to keep those on the car. And I'm curious what knuckle this is. I don't remember the CRX as having this extra bracket here. I'm going to find out. Once I pull the wheel off, I'll be able to take a look at the stamping on the knuckle. And here's a look at that suspension. This knuckle is a DA knuckle. You can tell by how it's open here on the side and just the shape of it with that particular caliper. I could kind of tell when it was on the car. So hopefully you had it aligned. It drives pretty straight still, because with the DA knuckle it throws off the geometry a little bit. I will probably go back to some EX knuckles. I have another set, or I might even just put some DX knuckles on here and upgraded pads and rotors. It has Tokiko Blues with some Skunk2 springs. Camera kit does not look like Skunk2. It looks like one of those generic aftermarket ones. It has, looks like a new axle and a single rib pulley. I don't know if this is an aftermarket one or maybe like a OEM CTR, ITR. I don't really know much about that. If it is, it'll be okay on the Doc VTEC. It just doesn't work well on the non-VTECs because they're not balanced as well. So there's a good look at the suspension and what that came with. And the rear is pretty much all stock with the exception of those Tokiko Blues and also the springs here. So it does have a nice full set of Skunk2 springs. I'll probably remove those. I think some sort of coilover setup will be a lot better at the track. I don't feel like lowering springs really do a whole lot for you. Then we'll take off the 88, 89, actually the 88 style rear lower control arms. And we'll get rid of those once we get some new shocks also. And underneath the car it's really solid too. The lower jack point over here is a little mangled. I'll see if I can maybe hammer that out one of these days. But other than that, not really any major damage on the undercarriage of the car. And lastly, I'll show you a couple areas that could use some repair or at least some straightening out. The front radiator support was bent up, and I'm imagining that's why he had to replace the radiator. It looks like they tried to jack it underneath, and in doing so, I bet they caught the radiator and punctured it down there. So I highly doubt I'll replace it. I've done it before where I drill out the spot welds and put a new one on here. Honestly, I'll probably remove the radiator one day and just come out here and hammer this down and try flattening it out as much as possible. The T-bar, I think I'm going to eliminate it altogether, especially once I go with those particular hood pins. It won't be necessary, and it's also the incorrect one for that hood, so it won't even work. So I think I'm just going to pull that off and try flattening out the bottom a little bit. And then on the passenger rear quarter panel, it had some sort of dent before, because on the inside of here, you can see where they put Bondo and it's kind of like squeezed through, and it's now cracking on the paint. They did a decent job of repairing it. So we're going to leave it alone. It's not an issue that's going to affect the way the car drives. It's more aesthetics on this particular vehicle. And lastly, what do you guys think about the price? Would you have paid $1,800 for the CRX? For me, it was justifiable. We wanted another car that we could have fun with, and I think this is the perfect platform. The swap alone, those European seats, the JDM front end, the wheels, the exhaust, has a lot of parts that make up for that initial cost of the entire car. So what I'm going to do first is it has two check engine lights, idle air control valve and the knock sensor. I'm going to get those fixed. Very easy to diagnose and fix. I'm going to do an oil change. I'm going to get that hood secure. And I'm going to get the car registered. I want to be able to drive it just on my days off, like here back and forth to the store or hanging out with some friends. That way I can kind of see what little issues need to be taken care of here and there. And at the same time, I'll be doing the maintenance on the car, where we're going to change out all the bearings, all the bushings, just do like a complete suspension overhaul. And that'll wrap it up for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed the introduction to this new CRX. I can't wait to start working on it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, just trying to get it a lot more fundamentally sound than what it is now. It obviously needs a lot of areas looked at, and it's going to be fun doing so. I think it's going to be a lot of fun once it's ready to drive. It's going to be a car that you don't have to worry about. We can beat on it. Don't got to worry about the paint. Don't got to worry about a lot of things on it. We're just going to have a whole lot of fun driving the car and getting it out the track and just enjoying it on days off when we want to go cruising it. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.